But there were moments in season 1 where I feel like he should have had, because knowing now that he knew that she didn't die immediately, I feel like there were moments that whether beats should have been played differently, things should have been written differently. And in hindsight, that most shows have stuff like that, but because it's not a one and done thing, it's something I've been thinking about more. I haven't actually rewatched Arrow, though. No, but you're right,
because there were definitely conversations when he first got back from the island about Sarah that would have, maybe he wouldn't have chose to play them differently, but the cuts, the edit, lingering on him versus, Lance, who's having an emotional moment because his daughter's dead. Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard because you don't know that you're gonna necessarily do that,
and you don't necessarily know that if you'll get a season 2, you don't know that in the beginning, obviously when they're still writing that earlier stuff, you don't know that the network will approve this, etc., etc. I understand there's a lot of forces to make a television show beyond just putting pen to paper, or as the case would be, fingers to typewriters or computers.
But
yeah, no, I mean, I will say with Shadow, that was an interesting death to the extent that I didn't believe it until like when they killed her. I thought there was gonna be a twist, oh, it was a fake bullet, something like she's faking her death, and I was like, oh, that was a weird way to end that storyline.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it makes sense in the sense of
for Slade,
but that's what I feel like that's the easy thing for Slade. And granted, the drug is changing him, and they've said that on the show that's part of it. It's that he's driven now by something else. But I don't know. There have been a few things where I was like, meh, and I didn't really have that reaction last year. And I will say also, it brings it back to the Murakami thing, or however you say it. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I apologize. Roy being injected with it. There are so many other interesting ways to bring him into the folds.
Well, I mean,
that I didn't want it to be something like that.
I mean, I think it must. I don't know. Again, with the not being able to read people's minds thing, gotta get on that. Given that fans did want to see if he was going to become Speedy, they wanted to see if he was going to do that. I can understand that if they have so many other cards to play and balls to juggle, etc., that could be one less thing they have to deal with in the future. This is something that sets him on his way to being an official part of the team.
But he was already on.
But in an open way.
No, I know, but if
you're gonna make him actually Speedy, I feel like you might have actually needed that.
But that's what I'm saying is your definition of Speedy and mine.
Right.
They're being very literal, and now the show is being very, very literal in that they're going the superhero way.
Right.
Now this kid has super strength, he has super healing, he has super speed. I'm sure. That's not necessary. It didn't seem like it was necessary last year. It seems like it could be one way, but they always talked about we're putting our spin on it. We're doing our thing. So even as simple as Thea having a nickname of Speedy, it doesn't always have to be what you think it's going to be. And they proved last year, with your example perfectly, with Tommy not becoming the Dark Archer but dying, that things that you think we're not going to do just because you think them. And so this season, I feel like that's not the case. I feel like Malcolm coming back with this big secret that he's Thea's father, I literally went, so? Yeah, okay, it'll send her into teenage angst, but that's something that easily you could think would happen because of the history and because of she's constantly keeping secrets, and when they're personal ones, they mean more. And I didn't think they were reaching for the easy things. I thought they were reaching for the cool things that most of the time they are. And so a few things here and there this season, I've just been a little bit like, oh man, you set your bar so high last year.
I mean, I think when I saw that, it was interesting because I didn't think for one second that Malcolm was dead, because
he's John Barrowman.
First of all, it's John Barrowman. Second of all,
but it's okay that he's not. I mean, it's enough that he's not dead.
Right. So that's enough. But I mean, in this way, it does make things more interesting for Moira, quite frankly. And I think that that will be good because Thea's had storylines, Moira's had storylines, but they've been, as they were saying to us at CW, one of the 4 million times, basically, Moira is so interesting interesting when she's kind of holding these personal secrets versus these big.
Yeah, but they don't use her that
grand-reaching.
much. So
No,
it's,
but it's
so
like-
it's interesting, but we never get to see her play with
But
it.
that's kind of when I saw that reveal. My hope was like, maybe Moira will get a storyline now. Maybe she'll
Maybe.
actually get something that'll be
Yes,
genuinely her.
maybe.
Because I think she's a great actress.
Because there's a lot of cards on the table right now that I find really interesting. That is one of them.
Yeah. Because I mean that
Laurel as well is another one.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing really small hints of her problems. They're not going there yet. And
yeah.
like it's just weird to me that they're not going there. The way that with some things they go big and they go hard and they go fast. And then there are other things that they're just letting dangle. And like you kind of get the feeling, well, okay, that character, it feels like that character's not as important. And that they know, well, we can get to that later. We have time to get to that later. But that to me takes me out of the world a little bit, because it's like, well, if that character's going through that for 5 months and no one's noticing, while this one is changing the world in 5 months and everyone's like, it's a weird disconnect.
And I wonder how much, as much as I do like the potential Flash spinoff, I do wonder how much of that juggling
Oh yeah,
is due to that, because I mean now they will not be airing. The
Well,
original plan was to have
Mark isn't involved in the Flash spinoff.
no, but in the sense that they had originally planned to have one of the upcoming episodes be fully Flash centered. Now they've got an extra hour to fill. They might have thought, okay, well, we'll fill these things up, once we get that Flash thing out of the way or whatever. But now they don't have that kind of benchmark to look to, which they've been looking towards for months.
Yep.
Because we know when they first announced the spinoff, they were talking about, okay, well, 8 and 9 is going to be the introduction, and then 20 is going to be his standalone hour.
Mhm.
They've had that arced for months, so it's possible they're trying to, as the plans are adjusting, they're trying to readjust their own storytelling. So
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how it shakes out in the wake of not having to do a Flash backdoor pilot, because I feel like it's different. I mean, at least it's not like last minute scrapping, but it's still, they've got it.
Yeah, it's just that the stories that we're talking about that are like festering are the non-flashy ones,
Right.
and they're the real ones, and that's the show I wanted. The show I liked last year was, these are all real people that they could exist a couple cities over. That some of them are just doing kind of amazing things, and some of them are doing terrible things, and whatever. And it feels like that's not what they want to make anymore. So. I don't know. I'm still watching it. I still enjoy it. It's just I'm not as excited as I was last year, which is why I graded it down.
I think our definitions of ratings are different. That's all.
I know. That's why I wanted to know why you gave it a B+, because the grade was the same.
Yeah, I thought
The reasons were
I
very
thought-
different,
see,
and I knew that was going to
I thought
happen.
B+ is a good thing, and she's like, no.
Well, I would have given it an A last year. I think I did give it an A last year if we graded it.
Okay.
Like that's the
No,
thing.
we didn't last year, actually.
Well, from my written reviews, like
Yeah.
I praise the crap out of the show, and I still praise it when it is doing some really great things. But that's why I said that.
Those are our thoughts.
Mhm.